I recently sat down with Tim Harris and had an hour-long interview describing my journey in real estate and some big news, by the way, on something new that I am doing. Tim and Julie Harris sold over 100 homes their first year in real estate nearly 30 years ago. They've been coaching real estate agents for 25 years and have the #1 downloaded real estate daily podcast. Check out part 1 of our interview. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for all things on real estate sales, investing, building and scaling a team, and developing multiple streams of revenue.
Hello and welcome back. This is Tim Harris. We've got a very, very special presentation for you today, a very special podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, we are interviewing somebody who I've wanted to get on the podcast for a long time, Dan Lesniak. And Dan and his wife, KERI, are one of the most successful real estate teams in the country. By most successful, let me put this in perspective. Last year, they sold, wait for it, $732 million worth of real estate. So almost $1 billion in closed transactions last year alone. Extraordinary. And one of the main reasons that I want you guys to meet Dan is because I want you to realize Dan is just like all of us. I mean, Dan is he was in the Navy. He was somebody who was told he could never get into sales. I want you to talk about that, Dan. He's someone who people have said to him, Dan, you'll never be a good salesperson. In his first year in real estate, he sold over $20 million in real estate. So his hero's journey is similar to what many of you are working on in your own lives. And so, Dan, welcome to today's podcast.
Thank you, Tim. I'm stoked to be on here and to share my story, and hopefully your listeners will get some inspiration, maybe some learning out of it. So I'm fired up, and I've been wanting to be on this show with you for quite some time now.
I appreciate that, and I apologize for not having you on sooner. And so listeners, if the audio is not as good as it normally is, it's because Dan's schedule worked out, my schedule worked out. Julie and I aren't in our studio. I'm sitting here in the kitchen of our cabin in North Carolina. I could schedule it, Dan, and I'm not going to miss this opportunity, and you guys are about to discover why. So Dan, I want to start out by having them understand, I touched on this, but I'll set this up a little bit. One of our most listened to podcasts that we've ever done was a series of podcasts on how you could be ultra successful in real estate as an introvert. Getting to know you, I would say that you definitely are more on the introverted scale and the personality sequence, right? So could you explain to folks, yeah, right. Well, I'll tell you, it is fascinating that some of the most successful people in real estate actually are introverts who trained themselves basically to be more versatile, and that's definitely what you are. So can you talk a little bit about that and maybe drill down on that story I was sharing with them when you had all these, people tell you that you would never make it in sales, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, so I think when you think of a lot of times people think I'm introverted, right? I'm an introverted person, so therefore I can't go out and meet people and can't do sales, and I don't think that's not how I define introvert, by the way. I think extroverts get energy from being around people. I think introverts get drained by doing a lot of it, right? So in other words, I can really want to do it, right? And want to meet people, want to present to them how I can benefit them with my service or product, right? I think any introvert can do that. I just think at the end of the day, you get a little bit drained from that, whereas an extrovert gets energy from that. So I did have an introverted personality. I was in the Navy and submarines, engineering background, did business school and at Georgetown while I was at the working at the Pentagon, and I thought I would get this big consulting job with McKinsey, Bain, BCG, one of these highly thought, luxury brand consulting companies, basically, right? And it turned out none of them were hiring in 2010, 2011, or not at a big enough pace, but they were still interviewing a lot. So I got tons and tons of interviews, and I kept getting this feedback that we think you're great on the technical aspects, but we don't think you'd be good at sales. We think you're too reserved. We think you're too much of an introvert. Maybe they were thinking, right? So who knows, right? At the time, I had a consulting job for the government, and I asked a government contractor in DC. So I asked some of these interviewers, what should I do, right? I want another shot at this. I don't believe you, right? I think I'd be good at this job. And they said, well, go get another experience completely unrelated that might develop your sales background. And at the time I was buying what was my 5th home in my lifespan. I bought my first at the age of 23 with a VA loan, $180,000 in Jacksonville, Florida area, if you can believe that. And so I was buying my 5th home in the Arlington area, and I thought, well, this is the 5th time I've done this. I always do a lot of the negotiation. I was one of those annoying clients, that would pester the agent for part of the commission. And I thought, I'll get my real estate license, which I did. And I thought it would just be some sort of little side hustle, right? Well, because I had this full-time job, I decided to market specifically just to my building, 180 condos, nothing more, nothing less. And the strategy worked pretty well. Within a few months, I had more commission in my pipeline than my contracting job was going to make in a year. So I had this 90-day commission pipeline that was better than a year of salary. So I remember the day I quit my job. It was one of the most liberating, freeing moments of my life when I told my boss I was quitting, and he asked, "Is there anything we could do to keep you?" Because for them it's just margin, right? Like they're paying you something and billing the government like 2x. So like they need bodies, right? So I told him, no, there's nothing you can do, and it just felt so liberating, so free. And I went on that year I got half the market share in that building, so I got like 11 or 12 million of sales just in one building, and 10 million more, and mostly in the same zip code, places really close. So I did $500,000 of GCI and never really had to get in a car in my first year. So that's how I got to where we are, and yeah, I think introverts can do quite well in this industry.
Well, first of all, I should have said this before, but thank you for the service to our country. That's number one. Number two, Julie and I are both introverts, and Julie more than me, had to train ourselves to become more extroverted. So it's worth, now some of you guys who are natural extroverts, you're thinking to yourselves, why are we talking about this? Because chances are you have an introvert in your life, maybe your kid, maybe your spouse, what have you, that is introverted, and unfortunately they have pigeonholed themselves into thinking, and maybe societal pressures have pigeonholed themselves into thinking that they're only capable of what introverts do, like working in a nuclear sub, for example. But the reality of it is you can do anything in your life. The key is to work to being versatile. The key is to work to having sales skills. So Dan, what was between you deciding that you were going to be in real estate, you were going to market and, work into this selling condos, it sounds like, in the building you were living in, you had to, as an introvert, I would assume, have a high level of confidence in what you were saying to them before you actually had conversations, or were you actually willing to just jump into the deep end without necessarily knowing how to swim? What was your plan to actually get started?
Yeah, my plan was to, I understood these people, right? Like everybody in the area kind of has some shape or form of a job that revolves around the federal government. They're in a certain price range if you're in the, the same building, right? So I was one of them, right? I knew what their life was like. I knew the lifestyle they liked and being walkable to different areas, and so I really knew the audience, and I would go in knowing that. I'd go in with like my resume, like it was a job application. Like I put my in my listing packet, I would have I went to the Naval Academy, then Georgetown, and I would give them like my where I worked and what I was doing now, and I would give them my whole resume and really communicate the message that I'm a competent professional just like you, and I can get the job done. So I did go in there with confidence and presenting to them like that I'm one of you, and I know how to get the job done just like you know how to get your job done.
So you and KERI have a huge social following. You guys have your own coaching business. You've written a best-selling book. You've got all this high level of achievement outside of even selling real estate, or certainly your military and your other career. But it's fascinating. I want listeners to really drill down on what he just said. One of the tendencies, and we'll move off the introverted subject here in a second, one of the tendencies of an introverted person is they're going to take too long to get started. They're going to basically be in this stage of, needing to learn more, need to get my systems organized, need to learn, know what to say, role play forever, get my presentations down, work on my brand, work on my logo, got to make 14 more TikTok videos. In other words, they're always looking for more stuff to do before they actually start doing the stuff that they should have been doing in the first place, which is having direct conversations with, decision-making adults about buying and selling real estate. And what I want everyone to hear, because it's really important, especially for those of all of us introverted folks, is that you did not wait to be perfect at what you wanted to do. You just jumped into the deep end and you did it. And in the process of doing it, you learned what you needed to know. In other words, you did not wait to know and then get into work. You learned while you were earning. Did I just summarize it effectively?
Yeah, I lost the first 2 or 3 listings I went on, so yeah, it didn't happen right away. I got good at hunting and good at focusing, and back then I would look up Zillow Make Me Moves. We were in an inventory constrained environment that year, so I would find buyers and then find out what kind of home they were looking for and then go find them off market. So I got very task oriented and process oriented. I do think that's an advantage that introverts have, is that I think introverts can get very task oriented and get the job done. And so I think that if you really hone in on that, lean on that, I think that's an area as an introvert that you can use as an advantage. I think extroverts, on the other hand, sometimes can get too people focused, which is great. And you should obviously love people, care about the relationships, but I think sometimes they let that get in the way of moving that person forward in the process, right? And closing them on what is ultimately good for them, for what they want.
In other words, the introverted person is going to take more time, have a deliberate plan, create and then find a system that works. Hopefully not through trial and error. Hopefully they're going to, shorten the path by signing up for, coaching and training so they can follow a path that's going to get them up the mountain the quickest. And then I agree with what you said. Once an introvert has a plan that works, they then work the plan. Generally speaking, they're going to earn consistently. They're natural at doing what they don't want to do, and they don't want to do it at the highest level. Whereas an extrovert is going to be naturally wanting to do more social stuff, things that don't necessarily have a direct correlation between effort and results. So let's move on. Now, I started the show by telling all of them that you guys sold almost $1 billion in real estate in 1 year. That makes you one of the top. Where were you guys on the national team list of biggest brokers? It was like top 10, wasn't it?
I believe so. I think they keep changing the categories on there. I don't even know if I really look at that anymore. I'm more business oriented, than I consider that kind of a vanity number.
It is,
but yeah, somewhere I think over the years it's been anywhere from top 10 to top 30. We're usually in that range somewhere.
Yeah, Wall Street Journal is the list I was thinking of. So so that was your first year in real estate. You owned the game. Your broker then fires you. What happened?
Yeah, well, so back to the numbers business, right? I got pretty smart about title companies. I had a client who wanted to get out of corporate law. I thought, well, there's other brokers that have these title companies that agents can buy into, right? And have shares of. Well, I talked to one of my attorney clients, and he's like, yeah, we can do that. I have some title background. And so I ended up forming a title company, started selling shares to agents in my office. The broker didn't like that because he had his own exclusive title company. He told me it was illegal, by the way, which I'm like, well, that's interesting because this national brand down the street's doing it. Are they flagrantly violating the law, right? Which I doubted. So I had a 72-hour ultimatum to either disband it or leave. So I walked out of that office and up the street and joined Keller Williams.
So you were at Keller. So that's where you met KERI, correct?
Yeah. KERI was she moved from she started her brokerage career at Remax and then had I think she moved to like 6 to 8 months prior to that. So she was kind of new at Keller Williams. She was number one in the office, and the first thing the team leader there told me to do was, I like what you're doing with the title company. KERI's not using ours. You should try to recruit her to use your title company. So that was how I met KERI. I was pursuing her for her title business.
So it turns out you're a very good recruiter because now you guys have 3 little kids.
Four. We actually have 4.
Oh, 4. Well, that was
yeah,
fast. I thought it was 3 yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
Sorry. Yeah. So as far as you guys,
we met at. I was gonna say we met at Keller Williams. Started dating shortly after, and I think within a year and a half we were married. So it didn't take too long, and we merged our teams at the time. And about a year and a half later, we went and formed our own independent brokerage. So when we left Keller Williams, we were number 4 in the world, I believe, for them in total sales volume. And then I think we were doing 150, 200 million at that time. It was climbing fast. And then we left 8 years ago, started our own brokerage, and have built out a pretty large team ever since.
Well, 40 agents, right? So let's, I know some people are I'm sorry?
I think it's closer to 50 actually, but yeah.
Okay. Sorry. So listeners, there's a little bit of a delay. There's nothing we can do about it. It is what it is. So let me take a half step back for those who are now feeling overwhelmed by the fact that you guys are so big. It took you from the second you got your license to, how many years have you been in the business total?
About 10 and a half right now.
How long did it take for you to earn $1 million in commissions?
Gross or net?
Net's my next question.
Okay. I think gross, we hit it in 2014, and then net I think was 2015. So I think it was 2.5 years to get to gross, and 3.5 years to get to net for that number.
Okay, so that's amazing, right? So let's explain to the listeners, and Dan, you're the MBA guy from Georgetown, right? Not me. So explain to listeners who are just getting started, obviously gross versus net. Everyone assumes they know what that means, but could you please explain to them on a very, using real estate math, what that actually means?
Yeah, so when I talk gross commission income, I'm talking like how much commission came in. When I the total revenue, right, if you will, like how much did buyers and sellers pay to us? When I'm talking net income, I'm talking about, okay, we paid out this much money, had this much expenses. What was our actual real profit, right? Because I think sometimes the industry focuses too much on sales volume or gross commissions, and at the end of the day, it's what you're able to take home, and really at the end of the day, it's what you're able to save.
100%. And that's one of the things I'm hoping we can get to on this interview. If not, we'll do it on another one. Is all the amazing things you and KERI have done to make yourselves into deca millionaires, from having a very effective cash flowing business, having lots of profit, then reinvesting that into things that compound your wealth and obviously make you more profit. And you guys are, incredibly effective at that. And that's obviously one of the reasons you've been so successful. But it's a fascinating thing because not a lot of agents realize that at the end of the day, your real estate brokerage or your real estate team, the product that you produce in your business is happy customers and sold homes and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, if you really drill down, the product that you're producing in your real estate business is profit. And if you're not producing profit in your business, you don't really have a business. You have what we call a nonprofit business. So if your goal is to have enough profit left over that you then can reinvest that money and compound your wealth, rental properties, apartment syndications, all these things that these guys do, VRBOs, you're going to have a big profit margin. And Dan touched on this. The industry is obsessed with how many houses did you sell, or what was your dollar volume. But once you are in this business for any amount of time, especially as you experience market undulations, you quickly realize what matters more than anything is your net income. Because with that net income, like you guys could, Dan and I know agents, all of us know agents, that will talk about, I earned $3 million, or we sold 300 homes last year. This was an example I came across. Dan and I were on a call earlier. There's, teams out there and brokers out there that will earn $1 million in commission, and the team leader or the broker will maybe earn 150, 160,000 net. And, that's not bad actually, because most brokerages have a net of less than 3%. So million commissions equals 30 grand. But let's say you're an efficient team, and this is a good example. You earn $1 million, you're keeping around 150 grand. I want listeners to really internalize what I just said, because it really is powerful. Because here's the reason why. If you earn around 225 to 230 grand, you will actually have the same net income as the agent this is the conversation we just had with Amanda, right? You'll have the same net income as the agent who has the team that's earning $1 million. So look, nothing against forming teams, nothing against hiring staff, nothing against building your brand, nothing against any of those things, but just go into it with eyes open. You will have to do more of the boots on the ground type work when you don't have a team, but your profit margins are going to be 75, 85, 90% versus when you have a team, you're going to keep, you're going to hope that they're going to be around 12 or 15%. Not judging, just asking you to make a decision with eyes open, because this is a lot of agents get into this industry and they feel, pressures from everywhere to form a team. But if you're wanting to form a team, go into it knowing what the financial implications are down the road. Did I encapsulate that well, Dan?
Hey, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of this 3-part series with me and Tim Harris. By the way, if you want to learn how to join my global real estate team, we are located in all 50 states. We are located internationally. If you want to learn how to be a part of that, text me at 703-638-4393. On my global real estate team, you get to run the business the way you want. You get to plug into my coaching as well as Tim Harris's coaching and get empowered to build and scale a team, build the business of your dream, and develop multiple streams of revenue. Again, if you want to be a part of this growing organization, text me at 703-638-4393. And don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for part 2.